Hi, this is Sally Wood for Be Inspired, and today I'm going to be showing you how to cut out fabric for a shaped cushion and also how to cut the foam out and cover it for a replacement. This is a chenille. We actually need to work out which way the pile goes. Sometimes if you roll it over your finger like this, you can work it out. Now I'm going to rub it on my lips because that's usually the best way to try it, and I've got a little corner here. Right, that feels smooth, and that feels smooth, so let me think that the fabric actually has to go this way. I could put it either way, so long as everything goes the same way, so this and the front border all go the same way, on the flip side it's going to have to go the other way, otherwise it's going to shine differently. Okay, so having decided that this is where it needs to go, before I decide to cut, I'm going to also have a look at the pattern. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of those going across. So in order to make sure the front border has something to match up, I'm going to pull that over as far as I can. The front border should be straight. So in order to make sure that the front border is straight, I'm going to have to line up parts of the pattern, like the bottom of these berries in here, on the border, like that. Now I know that's straight, and as I smooth it out, it should all go nice and flat. I'm going to double check this part of the pattern. There's a leaf here and a leaf here. I'm going to make sure that those are also on where the piping is too. And this needs to be pulled just a little bit over so that it gets hit by the piping there. I'm thinking that looks pretty neat. Okay, now I am just going to put the pins along where the piping is. You can feel where the piping is, like that. You could run your finger along it. That's not going to keep the pattern for you. It does, however, show you where to pin, and pin all the way round. I don't have very much fabric to mess with, so it better be right. Come around the corner to the edge here, and when I match the sides up, I literally do it at the right angle that it goes at. If the T part is shaped, then I follow the shape round. Every chair is different. Some people use tailor's chalk, but I don't like doing that. And that seems to go up and in, which I'm not really happy about. That just might be the way they made the cushion, but I will probably straighten that out. But basically you copy everything from the original that you can. This might be that the cover, it has been pulled too far to the back on one side and not square on. Cut along the front, because I know it's meant to be straight, I'm going to cut straight along. I'm basically going from pattern to pattern along the front, so that's not going to move very much. And then I'm going to cut about 1 inch on the outside. So I'm being generous on this cut because I've noticed the way this corner goes, and the same on here. I'm going to cut just that little bit extra outside all the way up, and then I'm going to cut along here. Let's double check something. This is here and that's there, so I can cut more or less in a straight line here too, close to the pins, because that's not going to change. So that's one part done. Before I cut anything else off, I fold my cover in half like this and see if I need to make any alteration. So if I line these pins up with those ones there, and those all the way along the bottom, and then see if this changes. Sometimes you'll look through and find a pattern, and it's repeated every so often, and that's when you need to make sure your pattern is matching. But I don't actually have to do that with this one, but I will make sure that that's there and this is here, and that has actually straightened out to here. So there is a little bit of alteration I have to make here. I'm going to put my little nick there. That shows me where the centre front is, and a little one at the back which shows me where the centre back is. Now all of this seems a little bit generous, so I will cut that back to 1/2 inch, and I'll do it one layer at a time because otherwise it will twist. I've left it at the front rather generous, so I'm not going to worry about altering the front. I've just altered the back. So that's there. Now I'm going to come around the side, and to be honest, where my pins are seem pretty much in line with where they need to be, except for there. Okay, so when I trim back down here, now this one comes all the way back and this one comes round, but I'm going to put my fingers on here and I'm going to just go straight down like this, giving the 1/2 inch seam allowance. As I come around this corner, I'm going to double check again. That seems a bit wider, so I'm going to actually come out wider on the front there and square it off, because when I look underneath, that's more or less where that is. So now I'm going to recut like this, and then here I'm going to come round the 1/2 inch again, then again. If there's a little bit either way, that would take it up, and the same here. So I can actually unpin this one now. Usually I'd cut the second side out, but I only have a small amount of fabric, and matching the front border up is more important to me. So I'm going to measure that. That's 4 inches, so I'm going to need a border of 5 inches. Okay, what I'm going to do is measure 1 inch back on the top side of this fabric, so I can see where the pattern needs to be when I cut it. The back side of this doesn't matter, because it's, as my friend calls them, a happy chair. It means that there is no pattern for it to match. It's standing on its own. Having pinned, I'm just going to fold the fabric on those pin lines like that, because that gives me a really good clue as to where my fabric is going to need to be lined up. Now, using this line, I'm going to find the pattern repeat that it corresponds to. So I'm going to start on this side first. Wow, it's all the way down there. That's not good. That's a long way down. I wonder if there's one further up. Sometimes it's on a, it could be on a slant. Okay, so here it is. That's where I want it to go. Otherwise it's down here, which is not where I want it to be. So, having folded it over and worked out where my new line is, I'm going to bring that down. I'm going to actually pin into the fabric like that, just where they are, because this is going to be my cut line in order to have a matching border on the fabric here. Prior to doing that, I'm going to actually measure down and see how much fabric I've got. So if I wanted it 4 inches, I've got to cut it 5, which brings me down to here. And with a bit of luck, I will have everything I need. I can get the zip and siding out of here up the top. In the meantime, I'm just going to fold that over like that, and then I'll be able to work out how much fabric I've got left. Lining that up there, and this down here, yeah, plenty. So first of all, I'm going to cut my border out. Move that back here, make sure I've got a pin on that one too, and then I'm going to just eyeball across. Now I know that this pattern is this one here. I'm going to line that one up like that, and I'm going to aim towards my pin, which is there, and then wherever this pin is, I'm going to just pop it here for now. Once I've got my first set of patterns cut to, I can carry on going. It might not be perfect, but it should be close enough. And I'm going to cut all the way along to there, and then using the fabric you've already cut, you can line it up onto the next pattern like this, and just cut to the next section, which is here. Some patterns are easier to follow than others because you can really eyeball where they go to, and others are a little bit more awkward to see. Well, the front border out of here, lay that there flat on, cut up to my 5, move it, cut up to my 5 again, all the way across the fabric. Then pop this down. Now usually I would make sure that all the pattern matches, but as I say, this is not going in a chair that needs to have that much attention paid to. I'm going to make sure that the T, the widest part of the T, fits across here. I'm going to line it with the back, and then I know for certain I've got plenty at the front. So move that over like that. and that just comes in where the top of the T was cut on that side. So that is just where I want it, and I'm just going to cut that out accordingly. It's actually just slightly off, that's for sure. There's that side, and if I fold it and pull, and as I unfold it, it should line back up, but I will double check that it does what I want it to do that side. And now I'll cut around here and up here to finish off. And then along the top it just arcs out slightly. So here again, I'm just going to shape it as you did with the first one you cut out. Fold it in half, cut a V at the center top, and the same at the center bottom. So that's top, bottom, front border. So with the front border, I'm just going to fold it up. It should be 2.5 inches, just in case I'm off. Measure it, 2.5 inches. So I need a piece 3 inches wide for the zipping. Cut my piece at 3 inches, like this, all the way across. Once you've got the length for the zip to go in, just fold that in half and cut it. You've got your 2 borders for that, but I'll just double check, see how much I can get out at 5 inches. So I can start, don't need that much, probably on one side and a little bit on the other. So that's one side. It doesn't do all the way across, but it will do a certain length. So now I'm cutting the piping. I show you in every video, so I kind of got carried away. I'm cutting it to 1.5 inches. And I've already put a little V in the corner so that when I line them all up and sew them together, they're all facing the same way. I continue cutting this at 1.5 inches wide all the way across on each one. I like to use scraps up for piping if possible. Might only give me 1 length here or 2 lengths there. It's always worth it. So here I go at 1.5 inch wide. I clip that side because that's the way the fabric runs. Now I have to replace this actual cushion, unfortunately, so I'm going to pull that over, maybe 1/4 inch over the foam, and I'm just going to draw around the side of the cushion. Usually I would send a template to my friend who would get it cut out for me, but with this lockdown, nothing seems to be working very well. Having drawn my template out, I'm going to use my electric meat cutter, and I'm going to just cut about 1/4 inch on the inside of that line. Hopefully, keep it straight. Okay, so my 1/4 inch wasn't that good. So that's one side, and you see it's almost level. Do the other side, and then I'll do the piece that I'm putting on the top and the bottom. This is the thermos foam. By the time it's wrapped and everything, it will all fit in the cushion. Now here again, mark the cushion where you need it to be cut. I use super soft either side of the hardest one. Just softens it and makes it look plumper. With this one you can use a pair of scissors and cut. Having cut the top and bottom out in the soft, and I spray adhesive on the bottom one. I'll pop that side on and then do the other side. Let that settle. Do the other side so it's sandwiched between, and then we can go from there. I've got the Dacron, which I am now going to make sure goes all the way around. I've got it from the front to the back like that, which means that the front of this cushion is always going to be nice and smooth. The back doesn't matter so much because the back is where the zip goes. Make sure that fits there and over there. Now I've got that on there, I'm just going to cut along here. It gets caught up on the scissors, it's a real pain in the butt. And I'm going to do the same on the bottom side too. Using upholstery thread, I'm going to just put a knot in one end. And all I'm going to do is fold over the top and fold up the bottom like that. Pull it a little bit, not too much though. All I'm going to do is just stitch through the layers like this. I usually do over stitch on the first one, and then as I move along I do 2 or 3 stitches and pull it tight, and then onto the next section. I do that all the way along the back of the chair seat. at the corner, all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up like that, right into the corner, so that this can be folded down like that. It just fills up the corners. I'm going to fold that up, whip stitch across the top so that it's nice and tight and won't slip. And when I get to the top here, I'm going to do as I did on the side, which is fold that down and that up, and just whip stitch all the way along here. Just holds everything in place. I've got this far and it's going to start getting a little bit awkward for me. So all I'm going to do is do a couple of little nicks like that, and that should help it go around the corner there. Now the top one I've just trimmed slightly, so it should still cover those and go around the curve like that. There's a little bit of space, which is perfect when the new cover goes over the top, and then I'll sew to the corner. I've sewn all the way around, looks pretty neat. So I'll do the same. I'll cut this back as I did on the other side, so it goes round, and then I'll sew it all back into place. I've been doing these a long time and I'd much rather do it this way, as they always turn out nicer, and my customers have never complained or said that they've gone lumpy. Again, at the top, I cut into the corner here at the top, and again at the bottom. I am actually going to make a separate cover. It just makes it easier to get it into place and fill the T's out on the cushion. It makes life so much easier. This would cause a lot of friction on the back, and it might not get it into the corners as well as it could be. Because it's out of leftover curtain lining, I'm going to cut each piece separately, because it might have to come out of different pieces. All the measurements are the same as the new blue cover. Again, cut all of this. Okay, all I'm going to do now is cut some border out at 5 inches. I'm just going to put this together, and what I like to do when I'm doing an undercover is to have the front border in first. Okay, so the longest border I've got, I made a clip top and bottom center like I usually do, and the front border I've also done the same. So I'm just going to pop that border on the base and the seat cushion on top. The difference on this one is I am going to actually sew with about a 1/4 inch seam. So the side of my foot is actually running along the raw edge of the border and of the seat cushion top. And I'm going to do it on a number 3, and I'm going to sew it all the way around. Almost got to the end, but I've also almost run out of the border, so I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to put the border and the next section together. Seeing as that's already face up, I'm just going to pop this one down on top. It's a bit raggedy here, so I'm just going to run the side of my foot along where the fabric gets better. When I'm doing the underside, I just add the borders as I go along, so it makes life easier. Anyway, drop that down. I'm going to re-sew over my stitches, and then sort of hand crank it down a bit. Leave my needle down, lift the foot, take my scissors, and I'm just going to cut a little corner in, not very deep, because it's only 1/4 inch. Taking the fabric on the top, I am just going to twist it in place, and again running this arc across the top of the border. It should go in relatively easy. Open the seam up as well. You don't want to have a bulky seam, so I'm just pressing that out with my fingernails, and here we go. Now as I get to the top, again I'm going to hand crank it to where I think I need to turn it, lift the foot, cut the bottom just a little way, and with the needle down I can then pivot the fabric on top. Straighten it all out and pop the foot down like that, and just carry on sewing. The seam underneath, because it's thin fabric, has remained open, so that's good. Just remember, when you're working on a fabric or sewing a fabric together that might not have a straight line, it's just slightly angled, don't pull it, just let it rest and sew it on through. In fact, if you just pinch it together when it's resting on the fabric below and then pull it, you're pulling both fabrics together. And it's not really a pull, it's just like a holding it firm. So again, I'm just resting the fabric on top of the straight fabric, and I'm using fabric at the center of the chair cover to twist it, not from anywhere else. So put my finger down again and then twist, pull it round and finger down on top again so it doesn't pull, and again as I go around this curve. I could have put like stay stitching as you do in dressmaking, but I didn't bother. If you pull it like that, you're going to misshape it, so don't do that. Just pull a little bit at a time around so the arc follows. What I don't usually do is tip it up the other way, but I need to make sure that this border goes in straight, so I'm going to just tip it over here so the border is on top and the seat cushion is underneath. Here again, just run the foot along the raw side of the fabric. Now this time I'm just going to hold the fabric here until I get to almost the corner. Instead of cutting the border from underneath, I'm going to cut it from the top. I'm going to just angle that in, not even 1/4 of an inch, just shy, and then ease the fabric around the curve. So that sometimes takes a little bit of effort because it's really easier to do it the other way up. Now if I fold the fabric on up, it comes to this corner and it's a little bit shy, so I'm going to fold this fabric down to the corner and I'm going to add enough to go around. I'm thinking about 1/2 an inch. I'm just going to fold that back. It's going to be generous, but it will all go in to the seam. With my right sides of the border together, I'm actually only going to put just over a 1/4 inch seam on there. And that should actually take up what I want. Go straight across. Which actually means I'm going to go back to sewing the border underneath. Flatten out my seam as usual. Try not to have a join on the corner, but it's okay. Sometimes it works out that way. As usual, the needle down, foot up and twist. And these few stitches on the corner here can come out because I don't think they're in the right place. And then just lay the fabric on top. And I'm thinking I might have been too generous. If I am, it's maybe 1/8 of an inch too generous. I'm just going to pull these stitches from the corner because it will be easier to go around if they're not there. I've just managed to come around the last side where I'd sewn up. I've undone a few stitches and it's going to go in perfectly. So it's really hit and miss sometimes on this. Overstitch away so you don't have to go forward and back, and then remove and trim back the threads. I've just folded the front of the second side in half and clip this center. I am going to pin it to the center of the border that I've just sewn on. Clip to clip. Now this is when I actually do pin, because I don't really want to waste my time messing with it. So there's my first pin, and then I'm going to stretch it out to the first corner, which should be around about there, and I am going to pin that into position. What I do is I work out where my 1/4 inch seam allowance is, put my thumbnail on that, and then fold the fabric over my thumbnail. So that should be perfect. To the next corner, and here the seam is actually along the top by a little way, so I'm just going to make sure that goes in the same way. The other way to do it is fold your seams over and match the top and bottom of the seat cushion and then pull it in. That's either way will work. And then I'm going to ease my way all the way to the back of the cushion And here again, my 1/4 inch is where my thumbnail is. Roll that into here. I fold the border so the side seams match, and then pop that in there. That will give me where that comes to, and again pin it into place. So you just work your way around very carefully. That's all you're doing on this part, is making sure that everything works its way in. Having pinned all of the top to the bottom, I'm going to start at the front of the cushion again, but I'm not starting in the center this time. I'm going to start sewing about 2 inches from the first corner, beginning in reverse, and then forward again to the first corner, removing the pins as I go. Put my little nick in, sew to the corner, absolutely the same as before on the other side. Lift the foot, work your way around, hold on to where your pin is, and then pull the top fabric and the bottom fabric against each other like that, and then hold the 2 pieces together when they come even and carry on sewing, and that will ease any fabric in, just in case you're slightly smaller on one side than the other. Sometimes when you cut 2 pieces out, they might be slightly different. To the end here. Now on the last part, I'm only going to do about 1 to 2 inches, probably 2 inches. Hold on to where the middle is, pull it so it's even, and finish off. So that's the inside seat cushion. Okay, so Harry joined me today. Anybody who watches Death in Paradise will know what I'm talking. He's quite a cutie. I think I need to fix the outside of my house so they can no longer come in. But he's kind of slowing down work today. Here's the cover for the Dacron and everything. This shouldn't be too bad to pull on. What I've done is left the front open so it's easier to get the cushion in. So all I'm going to do is wriggle that on the back there like this. Sometimes these can be real workouts for people, and that's why I prefer to do a seat cushion, especially a T cushion or an L cushion with an undercover on it. It makes life so much easier if you're ever taking them out, so you can wash the cover, the exterior cover. So push that in. I've actually made the white cover a little bit bigger than the blue cover that's going to go over the top, and that's so that this can actually be squashed into the blue cover. So I think that's about right. Now move up to the front, and it sometimes tears where you've stitched. That's one of those things. I'm going to fold the T part in, bring that all the way to the front like that, and then let that, and there it goes in. And then again on the other side, I'm going to just roll that forward like that and ease the cover up so I can pop that in there like that. And that should actually fill all of that brownness out nicely on both sides. With pins, I'm going to fold over 1/4 of an inch like that and attach it to the top like this. I'm going to work all the way from either end to the middle. Well, actually you can put the middle in because you know where that's meant to be. It's just sometimes easier to work from outside to inside, but seeing as we've marked that, we can do that. And then just go in the middle of each section and close it up too. Put the raw edges together like that and then just fold it up. A ladder stitch is just as it sounds. I'm going to put my needle back maybe about 1/2 inch like that from the start, pull it through. I've got a knot in the bottom, and I'm literally going to go through about 1/4 inch on one side and 1/4 inch on the underside like that, but it has to be opposite. So that's where the little tear was, which is quite normal. It's quite a bit of fabric to go through. I'll come through the folded side and onto the flat side, which should still have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then again through the folded side across pull it, and then through the top. And now I'm just going to work my way all the way along. It's easier if you do stitch by stitch, because then you can see where you're coming out, going in. You don't have to pull it all the way through, just make sure that the needle goes horizontal. And I don't suppose white on white in this light is very good, so but hopefully you'll get the gist of what I'm doing. And then I pull it through. I double check, because sometimes I miss stitch and put it on the wrong side. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be. And then I start again until I've gone all the way across the front. Don't need that one anymore. And then just carry on going. Now when you finally get that to the end, and there's the where I started or finished the sewing, I'm just going to take a few stitches to go over that join, and then that eases the pressure right there. Just like I did at the beginning, I went over a few stitches, and when you get far enough, just over stitch a few times, really small, okay, like that, 2, 3 should do it. And then I usually put my thread in and out further down like that, and I'll cut it, and then there's a long thread inside that won't pull out. I'm going to start the piping, and the reason why I put a arrow or a cut in my piping so that I know that that is the way I want the piping to go. The next piece also faces that way, so I am going to just pop that under here like this, and sew at right angles across here. It's on 2.8. Just needs a bit of help this time. There's fire retardancy, and sometimes that slows everything going through. Fold the next one out. There's the end. There's the next one, it goes on there. This ensures that all of the pile on the fabric is facing the same way, and I don't end up with dark and light patches as it goes around the furniture. I'm going to do that for all the pieces that are going to go on the chair seat. So now I'm going to just sew on down. I've come to the join, and all I'm going to do is cut about 1/4 of an inch away from the original seam, open that up like that, and then pop the piping in the middle and pull it over. As I get there, I'm going to make sure it's really flat, because this is quite bulky fabric. Make sure the top part's flat there, and it's open and flat on the other end. Then work on through. I am going to work out which two pieces go together. If I pop that pattern over here, I can see that this part and this part go together. So this is the first one I'm going to do. Then I know, once I've got this attached, then I know where I'm going. So you work your own ways of doing things out. The second thing I'm going to do is make sure that the piping will go all the way along the front without being joined. Okay, that goes to there, and just work it backwards, that's fine. It goes into there, and then working round to the top, hopefully I can start it somewhere along the back. Oh gosh, that's a really generous one. So I'm going to move it just a little way, I think. It's always hit and miss, but as I say, I prefer to be able to have no joints on the front, or if there is a joint, that it's right towards the outer edge. So I'm going to just rework that like this. It's just my personal like comes to there, so I can actually move it another inch, I think, without it being a problem anywhere. There we go. The other thing to do is make sure that the fabric underneath is where you need it, which is giving it a 1/2 inch seam allowance. This in places is less than 1/2 inch, so don't rely on your piping to give it to you. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't, so just move it until it's where it needs to be, and then just carry on sewing. It's still on number 5. This has been treated with fire retardancy, which is giving it a rubbery feel. So let me see. Silicone, that's what you need to put on. I'm just going to spray the back of my fabric like this, just where it's going to be going through, and that should make it a lot easier. The silicone doesn't make a mess of your fabric, it's clear. Oh, that's better. Should have done that first time. Still needs a bit of aid to be pulled through because it's quite plump. You can pick up silicone at Walmart or anywhere that they've got cast stuff, so just remember to have some. When I get to the corner, I'm going to cut the piping at a 45-degree angle, but not across the original stitches, just as close as I can. Before I do any more, I'm just going to tip this over and spray down here again. I'm going to wind it into the corner where I want it to go, which is probably there. Leave my needle down, pick the foot up, twist, and I can already see that's where I want to be. So now I've just got to twist the piping. Sometimes you need to push the piping right back and then back into place, and then off we go. And all the loose threads so that they don't get caught under. As I get here, I'm going to just spray the next section. Now, I'm not stretching this fabric. All I'm doing is letting it rest on the base of my sewing machine, pinching the piping where I need it, so I'm not pulling on anything, and then letting it run through the machine. Then you can use your fingers to move the piping where you need it if it's going out of place. Just sprayed the next section, and I'm going to work towards the curve. So here again, I'm just popping the piping down on top, pinching it all together and letting it go through the machine. Now as I get to the curve, all I'm going to do is curve the piping around, and using my fingers to pinch it on top, just let it go through the machine. Just make sure that you keep your 1/2 inch. It will kind of straighten out as you get there and into the corner. Before I get any further, I'm going to just quickly spray this down, just where I'm going to be stitching. My join is quite close to the edge. I'm going to be cutting through some of my stitching, I think, or some of that. So let's get this in. Cut in at a 45-degree angle from the corner here into the piping. All I'm going to do is sew into the corner, leave the needle down, lift the foot up. The piping is going to curve around slightly, and the piping again can just be allowed to follow the curve. Here again, cut in and then twist. But before I set everything up, I'm just going to spray down here. As I say, it's important to keep the spraying going. Sometimes you spray and the amount gets on here, that's why it's always a bit icky on my plate there. It seems to eat the plastic away a bit. And I'm just going to carry on sewing across the front. I've just come up to the top where I want to join it, and so I'm going to, as usual, needle down, whoops, foot up and twist. Make sure that I can get around the corner. Pull this back, because I'm actually not going to put the join here, I'm going to probably put it here. I need this to go at least 1 inch to 2 inches, 2 to maybe 6 centimeters. You just need to give yourself a bit of an allowance, that's all. I've got a nice wide overlap, and actually there's a natural join just here, so I'm going to cut the join there. Then I've got plenty of fabric to overlap and sew. Now for pattern matching, which is the most important part of this. I roll the piping down like that, because it should match on here. Usually if you roll the fabric over a little ways, you'll find where you're looking for. If I move this down and place this over the top like that, you can see that this part of the stalk or stem to the leaves is here. We've got the berries here, the top half of the leaf on here, and so on. So what I'm going to do is half an inch down should be where it joins. That's why you fold everything up 1 inch to find where everything flows. So if I pinch that, you can see the stem goes up and it curls round. So I'm going to hold that, and because I sew from the back down, I'm going to put a pin in there. I know it's facing the wrong way, but that'll be fine for now. And again here, I work my way along and I find out where everything goes. Well, there's the top of the leaf there, and I think if I pinch that to there, the leaf and this stem and the bottom of that leaf all go in together as well. So I'm going to just pinch the bottom of that leaf, again 1/2 inch, and pop that in there like that. I just want one more place, which will be up here. There's my stem going up, fold that over 1/2 inch, pull it under, again just put my pin right in there. Now with everything pinned together like this, I'm going to slot everything under just before the first pin, because the first pin is where the first part of the pattern matches. Put the raw edges together and put the stitch length on a number 3. Now when I put the piping on, it was a number 5, which is perfectly okay. Remove the pin. What I'm going to do is the needle I'm going to slide over one, and that should cinch everything up to the piping. Pinch the next pin where the next part matches. That is where you're going to be aiming to. The fabric might wrinkle a little bit. Don't worry about that, it will straighten itself out. Well, as I get closer to the second pin, I'm going to remove it so that the fabric can't move too far. Pinch the fabrics together, stretch them out, and carry on sewing towards the third pin. Again, I'm just going to pinch the fabric at the end and then in the middle just to hold it, because it's quite a long stretch. Put a little bit of tension on and ease the fabric through, and then again tension. If you keep a bit of tension, everything should go through at the same time. And also the fabric shouldn't walk. Now I'm going to work towards this first corner. I've just removed the pin here, and I'm just going to hold the fabric at the corner and put the tension on. It shouldn't slip very much if there's any slippage at all. Nearly at the corner. I'm going to cut the border fabric at a 45-degree angle in. I'm going to hold the fabric and go in towards the corner. And where I think the corner is, I'm going to just drop the needle, lift the foot. Because the piping goes around just an angle, it's slightly different than normal. So I think another stitch will do. Up and twist, but only twist the top fabric. Use your thumb to push all of the fabric out of the way, and then let it down, and let the fabric pull itself through to a certain extent. You still need to put pressure on top and bottom fabrics. You don't want to be pulling the fabric unless it's against themselves, otherwise you're going to distort the fabric for putting the second side on. Again, I'm going to mark my corner and work into the corner here. It's not very easy to see, so you kind of guess where you're going. Needle down, foot up, double check. Make sure your raw edges are running together as you go around the curve. Sometimes it's straight and then a curve, but in this case it's a curve all the way around, so I'm going to just ease that in. As soon as I get up here, I'm not sure how much I need to add. Just going to sew up to about 2 inches from the end of the border, and as I go I'm just going to pull this fabric up so it curves around nicely. I think that's about 2 inches. I'm going to do a reverse stitch just to hold it. Then I'm going to check to see whether anything slipped. When I eventually put this side in, I'll unstitch a little bit and pull this one back, but the rest seems to have gone in well. The border face up here and a new border to go on top. I will put the white lines together and sew about a foot width inside. Open the whole thing up like that. Now lying the top of the seat cushion down, popping it underneath and going back about 1 inch from where I stopped. Here we go. As you get closer, just make sure that the seam is still out flat as you go across. And I'm going to sew to about 4 inches, or at least 10 centimeters from the end. I'm not going to go forward and back, just in case I need to undo any of that. Now I'm going to try to match my border, and I have my center marks marked there. What I'm going to do is bring the border through so it's level with the edge here, and I'm going to pinch both ends of the seat border together like that, so they're corner to corner and they match in the middle. So here's the center, and I'm just going to ease the border out so it's secure, and I'm going to work my way back to this side, and I'm going to ease everything around as I go. Hopefully if I do this it matches, and it does. So I'm going to pop a pin in here too, and there again across the back, pull that so that that fits, and again a pin all the way through from the other side, only because I'm going to be sewing from this side. As we come around the corner, just ease the side in to where that is, fold it over, fold the rest of the border over, and then bring the corner to corner in here like that. Make sure your tops are flat, that is actually on the corner. You can feel the piping top and bottom. Hold that and pin that into place. We can sew from the top of here all the way down and round, just above where the pin is, and take it out and slide it exactly where it was underneath the foot like this. Drop the foot down, pinching where the next pin is in between the two parts, and straighten out the border as you go, because sometimes the weight of the side underneath kind of pushes it all back the other way. Start sewing, and as you get to each section just pull it and reorganize it. Now I'm nearly where the seam is. Remove that pin so it doesn't get caught underneath, and I am going to just sew that under here. Make sure that the seam is open and flat, so nothing's making it go wonky, and sew through it. As I come to my first corner, I'm going to straighten this curve out and pinch where the pin is and sew towards that corner. Put a bit of tension on it. Adjust the top of the seat cushion as you go. Now as I get to that first corner, I'm going to remove the pin, which means I can make this flat and I can twist this back better. Let's carry on to the corner. Let's get really close to the corner. Take your scissors and cut a little nick to the side and sew to the corner of the piping as it turns, and twist everything underneath like that, and again adjust the border and start sewing. And then when you get to the next part where you need to turn it, take it out, adjust until you're right on top of it. Your scissors, cut in, needle down, foot up, and then adjust back in line. And here for the middle pin and the V is here, so I'm going to pinch that like that, and then pinch halfway along, and then just sew up to where my fingers are pinched on the fabric. Straighten the border out as I go. When I get to my fingers, I'm going to go to the pin part of the border. It might be a little bit loose, but it should all work in. Remember to make it taut. Now as I get closer to the pin, straighten out the rest of the border like that, otherwise it all twists around. And I'm going to pinch just in front of the pin towards me. Take that out. Again, adjust the border so it goes in straight. Now, we don't actually have the other side all sewn in. Kind of lay that down and pinch it on top, just as I would if it was a new side. I'm going to work myself along this front border, and then we're at the corners, and then start taking the border on round until you need to add your next piece in. So this is nearly the second side in place, and again I'm going to stop about 2 inches before the end here, forward and back. There's my new side. I'm going to literally just fold that over and catch that down. I do it on like a zigzag. As you can see, the side of this is running along the side of the foot to keep it even. Put that back on a straight stitch, the border down, and the new border to go on top. Pop that a little way over. I'm actually going to put it on the side of the selvage, run that down all the way to the bottom. Again, I'm going to flatten that out, as like we did on the first side. The second side, we'll just pop that back under with the border facing up, about an inch back, and then carry on sewing. As I get to the seam, I'm going to open that out, make sure it's nice and flat, and pinch it together, and then pinch it all the way to the back of the seat cover, and finish again about 4 inches, 10 centimeters from the edge. I've sewn this side in, so now I'm going to just measure out for here. From where I stopped sewing to the first corner, just line up your corners like that and put a pin in. And now I'm going to go to the next corner of the T and pin that one in like that. And do it from top to bottom, it's easier. The side I'm going to sew in is down there. Just fold the border in half like this, and it should be square. And then the corner here and the corner here, I'm going to just lay on top of each other so I can feel the piping on both parts. And I'm going to just straighten that out like that, and then just pinch about 4 inches down from there, and this should actually go in straight. Do that again and find out where this seam is. Fold the seam in half like that too, so it's on top of each other, lined up here to here, and that should be where the seam goes in. And then as you pull it out, that should all match up at the bottom there. I'm going to put another pin here. Now everything should be lined up. Okay, so the second side of the border, pop this underneath like this, just above where the pin is, and take it out and slide it exactly where it was underneath the foot like this. Drop the foot down, pinching where the next pin is in between the two parts, and straighten out the border as you go. Start sewing, and as you get to each section, just pull it and reorganize it. Make sure that the seam is open and flat, so nothing's making it go wonky, and sew through it. Now as I come to my first corner, I'm going to straighten this curve out and pinch where the pin is and sew towards that corner. Put a bit of tension on it, adjust the top of the seat cushion as you go. Just carry on to the corner. Just get really close to the corner. Take your scissors and cut into the side and sew to the corner of the piping as it turns, and then twist everything underneath like that. Adjust the border and start sewing. Get your scissors, cut in, needle down, foot up, and then adjust back in line for the last stretch. Because I need to pattern match on here, I'm just going to check that anyway, so I'm just going to pull it tight and let it pull in. Looks like it's going to pleat, so I'll have to adjust that, but hopefully it'll go in a minute. To deal with these tails on the border, just fold it down to match the top of your seat cushion like that. It should be the same on the other side. Straighten that out between the two and cut it across like this. I'll do the same on the other side. Now for the zip, fold this zip border over by about 1/2 inch. I'm going to rest that on top, pop that under, and let it just flow along. As long as, see, this here to here is about 1/2 inch, so if you make sure that that and that run together, you should be fine. And I'm just gonna do that to the end, make it as even as possible. I'm running the teeth on top of the fold of fabric, so it should be even. Almost there. When you get to the end, just cut the whole thing across. The second side should be the same size as the first if you've cut it in half. So again, fold that over, just pop that down there like that. Just make sure the tops are even. And I tend to roll the fabric as I go. If I do that, the fabrics don't tend to push each other out of the way. And then I work my way down the second side to the other end. Now when you've got your zip in there, and you could have done this before, it doesn't really matter, but you need to fold it in half and clip either side for the centre mark to go along the back. That's one. We need that for the back. Okay, I'm joining the piping, so I'm going to just cut up here. What I do is I cross it over and see how far up I can go, and actually I can go a little bit further, because the further away from the corner I make the join, the better, the more even it will be. So I'm going to cut all the way back to here, and again I'm going to just swap it, cross it over and see where I'm at, and I'm thinking I'll go right in the middle here. So I'm going to cut that at a 45-degree angle, and I pre-cut it. So there's my first cut, and then I'm going to just lay that across like this, and about an inch from here back here I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to cross it that way over, so that when I actually sew the seams together, they are already assigned to where they're going. Now I have actually cut it the other way and had to join it, so just be careful. So now if I hold it like that, you can see that the seams both go the same way, and if I then fold that over like that, I'm going to sew midway down, which is about ½ inch seam allowance on it, and I'm going to pop it under the foot like that. I'm going to be sewing it on a 2.8, so it's quite a small stitch, and just going from corner to corner. Then all I'm going to do is pull it open like that, just to make sure that everything lines up, which it does. It's a little bit generous, but it will be fine. I've got my piping foot back on. Personally, I like to sew these separately, so I'm going to just sew the piping together like I already had. I'm going to pop this on the longest stitch and start sewing. And as I get closer to the join, I make sure that all of the seam is flat. And then when I get close to the join where the piping is, there it is, I'm going to just pop it close to, be a little bit generous, and then cut it. Pop that all the way back and carry on sewing. Should go in straight. When that's done, I'll release it like that. I'm going to just pop that back under here and encourage that to go exactly where I want it to go. Push any loose stray ends underneath so they're not in the seam when the piping is sewn down. Just going to sew across also on the longest stitch and repeat it on the other side. I use continuous zipping, and a separate slide comes with it, and I have a certain way of doing it. Work out where the first tooth is, which is that one. So I always put it on my left hand side, and then I'm just going to open the zip up just a little way, that'll be fine, and then I put the slide on with the handle part down. You've really got to be able to grab hold of all of this in one go. So with a bit of luck, now the one I want is on this side. I think I got the right one now. That on there like that, and then that one in there like that. Push it down with your fingers so it grips, and then just ease it. And I'm looking here, it looks almost even. Before you start sewing anything in, just make sure that everything's straight, and that looks a little bit wonky, so I'm going to straighten that up like that, and I'm going to just pull it back a little bit on the border fabric. See, it's about the same width, and I'm going to fold this over like that, and then again, so it's actually folded over by about ½ inch. Just make sure everything's where it needs to be. If you need to, you could pin it, but it should be okay. Fold it over there, fold it under. I'm going to just sew from one side of the border to the other with my silicone. Just make sure that you start and finish on the border. So that's that in place. And making sure that you keep your zip border facing down. I have actually twisted it, which doesn't help because you've got to waste time unpicking everything. Again, make sure that your zip is straight. Again, pop that on top of the side border and fold over and fold over again. It's got a good ½ inch on both sides. And I'm just going to sew again. So that's now the border complete. The center mark here on the back, I'm going to match that up with the center mark on the zip panel. That under and spray, so we don't want that holding up. Pinch it on a 3 and go across so the stitch width is a 3, so it cinches up to the piping. And sew to the first corner. And again, I'm just holding the fabrics onto each other, I'm not pulling the bottom one. So the first corner of the zip border, I've just clipped it so it should go round the corner here. And I'm just going to pull it into place. I'm going to straighten the top of the seat, or the bottom, depending on which part it is, because I don't know, out, and pop the foot back down. I'm going to just carry on sewing. What I've done here is the zip border is here and this is the side border going up. I'm just going to fold the side border up and then just carry on sewing on down so it's all held into place. On the return, so I've done from the center to one side. Now I'm going to go back along here. I'm going to measure the top of the chair seat to the bottom of where the folded fabric needs to be. See what that is. There's the top, there's the bottom, there's the folded fabric. So make sure that the fabric is folded firmly, pinch it all together, and this time when you lift the foot up, put it down on top of the folded fabric. The reason is that if you start here and sew, the fold might move. It will probably carry on moving forward because of the amount of fabric there. So by putting it down on top and then popping your needle through, you're holding everything in place. So I'm going to just go forward a little bit and then I'm going to reverse. Now that's holding everything in place, and I'm going to go forward again up to the first corner. Okay, so I've sprayed it again. I should have done that before, but we're okay. I'm going to just carry on going forward, and I'm going to clip into the corner like I did. Sew to the corner, needle down, foot up, and then I'm going to just twist the fabric. Now I'm going to pinch where the where the center is. So I'm going to pinch. There's the center of the back. There's the center of the zip border. I'm going to hold those together and I'm going to just sew all the way across to the center. I'll adjust the fabric to make sure that all the raw edges are exactly where they need to be. Okay, so there we are, that's pinched together. Now for the other side. So I'm going to carry on, I'm going to spray this and continue as I did on the first side. So basically I'm going to carry on sewing to the corner. I'm not going to pull, I'm just going to rest it on top as it needs to run together. I've just clipped it so it should go round the corner here. What I've done here is the zip border is here and this is the side border going up. I'm just going to fold the side border up and then just carry on sewing on down so it's all held into place along here. I'm going to measure the top of the chair seat to the bottom of where the folded fabric needs to be. So make sure that the fabric is folded firmly, pinch it all together, and this time when you lift the foot up, put it down on top, and I'm going to go forward again. Now that's holding everything in place. Now just come around the corner there. I don't have to line up the centres because they're already lined up and sewn, as this was the first side that I was working on. And I'm just going to pull slightly so it all pulls into place. Now when I get to the centre, all I'm going to do is carry on sewing so it holds everything in place. And that is done. All I have to do now is to put the cushion inside, which should be quite easy. Always pull it in front of the zip, don't pull it from behind the zip, otherwise you've got to reset it. I haven't done that yet, but a friend of mine did. She was most upset. Pull all of that out. Now I'm not going to pull any of these off just yet. No need. Just double check your stitching. I can see where it should be tucked in here. So what I'm going to have to do before I actually put this on, that's just about okay. Always check your stitching to make sure that it's where it needs to be. So just that one point on the front at the moment, and that's fine. So I've got 1, 2, 3 to re-go over, and all I'm going to do is maybe go from this side and just cut across. I'll cut across and it will cinch them in really tight so that that doesn't happen. So let's get that done first. Okay, all I'm going to do is sew across at a diagonal here just to cinch it in, and I'm doing that from the border side. Sometimes you need to do that. Oh, and I'm going to spray again. I'm going to just check that that's tight and then go on to the other ones. You know, for 5 minutes, perfect. You know, for that extra little minute to make sure things are good, it's really worth it in the end. That was okay. So now we're going to put this in here. The easiest way to do it is to put one corner in. Should be a bit tight actually, if we've done it right. So we've got that. Now we've got all of the back open there, and what I'm going to do is I kind of karate chop it so that it will fold. And I'm going to push, this is the workout part, push that down, lean on it as best I can, and bring the rest of the cover up until I get that ready to go into that corner too. Turn it over and kind of force the cushion the other way. With a bit of luck that will go in. It'll take a bit of working. Then twist it and try to get the piping along the side of your cushion. So it sometimes takes a few twists and turns, here we go, to get it where we want it. Do not be too gentle with your cushion. Everything works its way in eventually. So here we go. And you can see it kind of bows that way, so I'm going to push it that way and push it that way and work this in. As I say, this can be quite a physical workout to get these. When I was younger, they used to put a separate piece on for the tea, and when you were working this part out, they'd often fall off, which was a bit of a pain because then you'd have this floating piece of foam. That's why I do mine all in one piece. So let's get the top in like this, and it should all fit in. When I'm doing the zip side, I push it all down and make sure the zip is nice and easy to turn. If I hadn't done this inside cover, I'd be fighting for about an hour getting that on. Put that all the way around, slide it in here there, and it's nice and safe. That's why I like to put a pocket there. It just helps, and just smooth anything else out. But having done that, it's when you go around and clip all the pieces off. So just very carefully pull them, but don't cut the fabric. And I check one side like this, and then I'll check the other side. Wow, that was a workout. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've gained some information on how to make a tea cushion. You can use this method with any cushion. So just remember to pin where the piping meets the top, and you'll be fine. So I hope I've covered everything that you might want to know. The inside cover is always useful, as it makes putting cushions into a new cover with fire retardancy sprayed on it so much better. Please subscribe and hit the bell button if you want to hear more from me. And in the meantime, see you later. Take care. Ciao.